What's up, family? I'm Real Mike Rob. Make sure you tuning in to the 3-Point Conversion Radio. They got all of it, and they keep it funky. Let's get it.
Here live, we got our guy. Man, this is one of the coolest guys you'll meet. If I could say, I know it's not about, I'll probably get hit in the back of the head, but I'm gonna say it anyway. The most realest dude you'll meet. Had a great time with him at on Radio Row. Came to the table, we chopped it up. Funny, tell you like it is. My guy, Nick Ferguson. What up, Nick?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. How you been?
I'm doing well, man. I'm sitting back watching the draft and watching some teams make some big mistakes while I'm watching some other teams make some great moves. So it's been outstanding for me. What about you guys?
Good, man. We're doing the same. Laughing, making
like
fun. Right, yeah. Man, first, I want to ask you, before we get into football, we want to get into the important stuff. You were at Drug Free World. We talked about this last time in Miami. And for those who don't know about it, can you explain what it is, how everything is going with it?
Well, everything is going well. Obviously, we're dealing with this whole COVID-19, so it just kind of, slow things down just a little. But the idea and the premise behind Drug Free World is the fact of going out and educating, teachers, parents, educators on what drugs can actually do to one's body. And it's funny, we're dealing with the draft right now. And, we've seen a lot of guys fall victim to drugs and in the NFL, it's marijuana. That's kind of the biggest thing. And even though it's kind of now with the CBA being passed, it's deemed to be okay, but we still want to educate people as to what this can actually lead to, because we've all heard that, marijuana is kind of a gateway drug, and it kind of steams, kind of streamlines guys down a bad path. So for us, Drug Free World, we're just trying to educate people and let them know what's out there and just kind of give them the tools so they can make the right decisions themselves.
Absolutely. That's definitely understandable. Now, I know you talked about the draft. What stood out to you most from the draft so far?
Well, the most shocking thing that I've seen thus far is the Green Bay Packers taking a quarterback in the bottom of the first round. And that shocked me because, you already have a guy in Aaron Rodgers who still has about, 5 years remaining as a player playing at the top level. And you didn't go out and get him impact players that can play day one. You went and drafted his heir apparent who's going to play 4 years from now. So that's not helping Aaron Rodgers. That's crippling him. So that was probably one of the more shocking things I've seen.
See, Nick, I was shocked, but I like the pick. I'm going to tell you why. And I just said it just because I get it. They need to win now. But how many times have we said Green Bay is on the cusp and they had talent and they don't win?
But how can you keep saying, wait, you just said it yourself. They need to win now. Why not give him any weapons?
So can I finish? So listen what I'm saying, though, and you won't agree with this. Trust me. We've been saying this for years. I'm tired of the media saying, I know I'm part of the media now, but I'm tired of them saying Green Bay Packers are going to win. They don't win. Aaron Rodgers can't do it. He only done it once. He's had talent, and they don't win. So that's all I'm saying, Nick. Why would...
Sound like Bears bias. Okay, well, go ahead.
Go ahead, Nick.
See, that's not even fair to say that they're not winning. All you have to do is look at the two games this season when they faced the San Francisco 49ers. Aaron Rodgers was trying to do everything that he could. Looking at the only receiving option he had was Devontae Adams. You have to put more weapons around your quarterback to be successful. Just look at what Baltimore and Kansas City, what they've done thus far in the draft. Those two teams are not playing around. This is an arms race. And if you don't arm your quarterback with weapons outside, there's no possibility to win. So why go out and get another quarterback when one of your biggest issues is not having wide receivers? Mm-hmm. That makes no sense.
Yeah, it's funny because at first I was happy. I'm a Bears fan, Nick. So I'm gonna tell you. So I was happy at first when I'm like, yes, but at the same time, I started thinking about the future. Like, man, this guy might terrorize us. Also, I mean, if Aaron Rodgers, and it's funny because it's kind of like what happened in Green Bay when Brett Favre was like, I ain't about to train him. He got to do it himself. But look how it happened. And I can see Rodgers being like that also. I know it's not necessarily Rodgers mad at Love, but I would be frustrated. So I understand both ways because I would be frustrated also. Anything, real quick, anything else that stood out? Was that the only one that stood out to you?
Well, the Eagles taking Jalen Hurts. I mean, that has a lot of individuals in Philly upset, and those people in Philly, they get upset really quick, even though they call it a city of brotherly love. But those some angry people, man, and and those people, they are mad that Jalen Hurts was taken, and it's kind of the same thing with the Green Bay Packers. They're going like, listen, Carson Wentz needs weapons, right? Yeah. Alshon Jeffrey is there, Deshaun Jackson is there, but outside of that, what other type of weapons, do they have? But I understand what, Howie Roseman what he was thinking. He's thinking, okay, well, Carson Wentz has been injured. Even though we drafted him in the first round a couple of years ago, we don't know what's going to happen to him in the future. So let's go out and get our quarterback now, because if you think you're a team that's going to go out and try to tank for Trevor Lawrence, that's not going to happen. There's not a formula out there in football that's going to allow you to do that, because no coach, no player is just going to go out there and just blow games. This is in college football. So I understand the Eagles' reasons for doing what they did, but they could have waited until the third round to take Jalen Hurts.
And then we talked about the contract of Wentz, who didn't they just signed him to a big contract?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I think
$100 million
last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, listen, it makes you wonder what goes on in the minds of some of these GMs when they make these moves. Are they logical moves, or are they doing it out of desperation? So that seemed like a desperation move, especially if you take a quarterback in the second round like they took Jalen Hurts.
Right. I know. I agree. And once again, we're here live with former NFL safety Nick Ferguson. Now, next question is, man, so we look at what's going on with the draft, and you've seen everybody's reaction, and people are getting drafted. But with you were undrafted, but yet still you took the journey, went to the CFL, ended up with a 10-year career, not even including being on the practice squad of the Bears and other teams, I think. But can you describe that journey? And most people, usually some people are fold, but with you, of course, it pushed you. Can you describe that journey and explain why it really pushed you?
Well, the reason it pushed me, man, look, my father was a longshoreman, and he was a tough guy. And I grew up in the inner city of Miami. And, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, so everything that I earned, I had to fight tooth and nail for. So those early humbling beginnings prepared me for what was going to happen in my football career. And when you come from nothing, you don't have anything growing up as a kid, I mean, now everything is trending upward, right? Now you have to continue to fight and grind to get what you need. And for me, that was the same thing. I mean, I had to fight to get into college, right? And then I walked on, earned a scholarship. But that kind of, that was what my cycle, the things that I was going through. And that was kind of preparing me. One thing prepared me for the next. So walking on to Georgia Tech, earning that scholarship, being an undrafted player in the NFL, getting injured in training camp with the Cincinnati Bengals, having to go across the border to Canada to fine-tune my skills, and then when the opportunity presented itself, I jumped back here in the NFL. And the last day of the draft is today. So there are going to be a lot of guys who are very talented players who are not going to be drafted, right? Mm-hmm. But what those players have to remember, the same thing that I had to tell myself, it's not how you get into the league. It's just the fact of getting in. And when you get an opportunity, right, when you get an opportunity, you have to take full advantage of it. You can't self-loathe and say, well, I wasn't drafted, I should have been drafted. You can't do that. We can't do that in life. We don't have that much time to self-loathe. Whatever the situation has been presented to you, you make a choice. Either you're going forward or you're going backwards. So for me, I had to go forward. So what I did as a player, luckily for me, I played a position where I get to tackle people for a living, and they paid me for that. So what I did, every single tackle, I took everything I went through as a child, everything I went through on my grind, I took that out on my opponent, and that made me a better player.
Yeah, man. I think it's a lot of we've dealt with a lot of people who didn't get drafted. We hadn't done it in a year, especially this year. We couldn't get out there, but we were doing this project called The Next Level, where we would talk to a lot of college kids that wasn't I guess I shouldn't say fortunate enough, but went through trials and tribulations even before they can get drafted, whether it was on their own or parents passing, they had to go back home. But either or, we did this program where I would sit, talk to them. We would do feature articles on them, push it out to give them, I guess, more exposure. And people read their stories. And honestly speaking, man, a few of them got drafted, man. And I still keep up with some today. It's a player right now that came from Alabama. I can't think of his last name right now. He plays for Detroit Lions. It's a few players out there, so I get that, and they said the same thing. Some people just didn't get drafted because they didn't get drafted for whatever reason. But like you said, they pushed. But then we see this other side where they don't make it. You know what I'm saying? So I really think that message is good for them and for you to say something like that and talk about that.
Well, it is very important to know that in life we're going to be challenged. There's going to be adversity. I don't care how a person's life looks like on the outside, how much money they may have, or the house they live in. You know, they had to go through some trials to get to that point. And in life, because we don't know when the final chapter is going to be written on our story, we have to continue to push through. And what I tell kids I speak to, even adults, the easiest thing in life that you can do is quit, because it takes no effort. You just wake up one morning and you stop. Mm-hmm. So when you continue to push through those situations and you accomplish your goal, you feel that much better because you walked through the fire. You had to do that. No one else had to do that. So you can't give up, man. If you have a dream to be a broadcaster, a professional athlete, a rapper, or whatever it is, you have to continue to pursue your dream till you realize, okay, well, this dream I have to give up because I pursued it all the way to the end. But to me, you have to try to get to the end of that road, because if you don't, you're going to look back on it 5 and 10 years from now, and you're going to say, well, you know what? If I just pushed a little harder, if I trained a little harder, if I didn't give up, then look what have happened to me. Because we've all seen people that we grew up with or we were associated with, and they go out and accomplish something that we want to accomplish, and we're like, well, I was better than that person. Why that didn't happen to me? Well, you stopped. You gave up. You had the wrong people around you. So that sometimes that's the difference between success and failure.
D?
Yeah, that's definitely great. That was some strong words you said. But now, this offseason, Tampa Bay has been the talk of the offseason. Now, with Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski teaming back up, do you see them as the favorite in the NFC?
Heck yeah. Oh, no, without a doubt. I mean, first of all, you get Tom Brady, the best quarterback of all time, and then you add Gronk to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard, and then look at the defense. JPP and Dominican Sue, Shaq Barrett. So they are quietly piecing a team together to make a run, especially in the NFC South. So I would dare to say that they are the favorites to win, not just that division, but the conference, and possibly I would love to see the Super Bowl, Tampa Bay versus Kansas City or Baltimore, to take either one of those teams. But that would be one heck of a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree with you. Then the last question I got. Last time we talked to you, talked about being, you talked about the guys that you hated or you couldn't wait to play against? You remember you talked about playing against Hines Ward and how you enjoyed clocking him. Was it anybody else that you wish you could have gotten that you didn't?
Now that makes you sound like a person that has
no, it's football. No, it's football. I mean, hey, it's football. Some people you want to cross over. Some people you just want to like. I want to just nail them. I mean, is it? Hey, that was your job.
No, there wasn't any individuals like that. For me, see, I was the type of player that I'm not going to start something. Like, if you start it, now I will finish it, but I'm not just going to go out and look for things to get into. And Hines Ward was a different person because he was the type of guy that would just do things to get notoriety, and then people would say that he was tough because he was hitting guys when they were not looking. But there were just certain guys I looked forward to competing against because they were just, at the highest level of their game. And Adrian Peterson was definitely one of those guys because the way that he ran the ball, he was physical at the point of attack. He was one of those type of guys that you had to, get to him early. If you didn't, he was going to get stronger as the game went on because his confidence was going to build. So anytime I played against him, man, it was like, man, you knew you were going to be in for a dogfight. And if you didn't show up that day, that dude was either going to run over you or he was going to run by you.
Nah, shoot, I understand that. I knew it had to be somebody. So, because a lot of people say that, especially with Adrian, because he was that guy. But man, we definitely appreciate you for coming on, Nick. Of course, you're always welcome. You one of the homies now, big homie. So, appreciate you for coming on, man. Always welcome to come on. And hey, man. Can you talk about your? I know you got your project. Just mentioned the not project, but the show is coming up now. You go ahead and mention it.
Yeah. Right now, coming up in about 30 minutes on 104.3 The Fan here in Denver. Me and my co-host Cecil Remy will be breaking down the remaining portion of the draft. So if you want to, you can go to the app and definitely check it out.
All right, there you have it. My guy Nick Ferguson